Good evening and welcome to the Queens Community Meeting hosted by the NYCHA Federal Monitor Team. My name is Floretta Hudson. I serve as Project Associate to the Federal Monitor. We are coming to you live on our YouTube channel. All of our public meetings are recorded live and can be found there by searching NYCHA Federal Monitor Meetings. And please subscribe. We have the pleasure of hosting tonight's meeting from the Jacob Riis Settlement Building in Queensbridge Houses. We were here back in 2020 before the COVID pandemic hit our great city, and since then we have been holding virtual meetings. So to be back here tonight is very special. We realize a lot has happened these past 2.5 years, and needless to say, we are grateful for this opportunity to see you in person. So let's get right to it with a quick walkthrough of tonight's agenda. I am happy to be your moderator for tonight. To begin our agenda, we will have opening remarks by the NYCHA Federal Monitor, Bart Swartz, followed by remarks from our guest speakers, starting with Queensbridge Resident Association President Corinne Woods Haynes, our council member Judy Wan, and HUD Regional Administrator Alika Ampersamuel. Next, Mr. Swartz will return to us to give us an update on the monitorship. This will be followed by pillar updates from Deputy Monitor Dan Burnell on heat and elevators, Dennis Walsh on mold and lead, Tamika Williams-Moore on pest and waste, and Asha Muldrow and Edna Wells-Handy on the community and resident engagement work stream. We are happy to have a NYCHA resident with us tonight. She will give us an update as well. We're also happy to have Manny Martinez, Resident Association President for South Jamaica Queens. He will be followed by the most important segment of our agenda, and that is our Q&A session with our VIPs, the Queens residents. It is at this point of the meeting we look forward to hearing from the residents. We want to hear what's going on at your development, the issues you may be facing, any comments, questions, or concerns you may have. My colleagues, Chase Stamford and Heidi Saunders, are in the back at the welcome table to take your name and sign you up for our Q&A. Once you sign up with them, someone will escort you to the Q&A section, which is right behind me here. We want to hear from you, so please visit the welcome table if you haven't already. Sign up and we'll get you seated in the Q&A section. Without further delay, I'm happy to introduce the NYCHA Federal Monitor, Bart Swartz. Bart, over to you.
Thank you, Floretta. Can you hear me? Good. Thank you very much. We're very pleased to be able to be back in person meeting with everyone. We started the monitorship with a commitment to go to every borough on a regular basis, to rotate through the boroughs and to meet as many people as possible. And it's always been a foundation to what we're doing, to talk to the residents and to listen to the residents when they talk to us, not just through the email or through our staff in the developments, but face-to-face in meetings such as these. And while it was helpful to have the remote meetings so that we stayed in touch, there's nothing like being able to talk to each other in person. So I'm delighted that we're back. It's great that we're starting here. We had a terrific meeting the last time we were here. And I look forward to later in the program when I have more information I'd like to share with you and more to discuss. But again, thank you for being here. Thank you for making this available, this building and available and to us. And we're happy to answer any questions when it comes time for the question period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swartz. And we're pleased to introduce our guest speakers on tonight, beginning with Queensbridge Resident Association President Corinne Woods Haynes. Corinne, thank you for taking time out to speak with us We spoke on the phone a few times, and you allowed me to get to know you a little bit. You shared a number of positive things you're trying to make happen here at Queensbridge, and I'm excited for your leadership and the ideas that I hope will come to fruition by virtue of your strength as a leader here in the Queensbridge area. I'm pleased to introduce you. You are happy to take the microphone at the podium, and welcome. Let's give her a hand.
Good evening, everybody. I just would like to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank my residents for showing up as they always do. It's good to see you all's faces. It's very comforting to see you here and being supportive. Thank you for the neighborhood administrator coming. I am too grateful to be able to have a vision for Queensbridge Houses being the largest housing development in the country. And yes, we have been working kind of hard, I would like to say, with the management team, first building relationships and rapport and sharing visions, and some of the things that we have been working on, as I probably shared in the conversation, and I definitely shared in our community meeting, is that we're preparing our development for summer by way of assessing the mats, the playgrounds, power washing the playgrounds, the what we call jumbo gyms, power washing the benches, making sure our sprinklers are operating. We are addressing bicycles and motor scooters in the walkways. I don't know if everybody's aware of the fact that Queensbridge has one egress, one way in, one way out. And as a safety measure, we have been working with the management team tirelessly to get the bikes removed. We came up with some things that need to be done. One is notifying the residents by way of putting signs on their bicycles, the motorbikes, the scooters, and then the bicycles. A lot of residents are not aware of the fact that they're not supposed to park them there. They just park them there and go upstairs and do whatever, but they're not supposed to be there. It's a safety issue, and it's a liability, actually, for NYCHA. The grills that are also blocking the egresses, we're working on that. So what they have been doing is putting notices on them, letting the residents know. I think they give them 7 days to remove them. So that is definitely happening. I'm pleased, I'm excited about that. We're working on new signage for the development to help bring awareness to our residents of what we can and cannot do on NYCHA property. And it's a process, we all know it, but we are beginning the process by getting new signage. I believe I sent an email out today to Waste Management so that we can sit down and meet and strategize and get some support and guidance from them as far as what our ideas are for signs and what we can and cannot put on the signs. Trash cans distributed throughout the development has been a big plus in reference to managing our waste. We also have a huge influx of rodents that we have been addressing. We, the association, sent an email to our lovely mayor's office and their Rat Cesar program. It was not even a 24-hour turnaround. They came, we toured the entire development. They put together a plan of action and they started on Friday. So I'm excited about it. They have a great success rate, so as far as I know. And during the walkthrough, they were annihilating rats literally as they saw them. So I'm confident with the work that they're going to do. They dismantled a huge garden that was there, needed to be removed for a long time. That was a huge help. They sent a follow-up email. They sent pictures on what they did, what the plan is. They are using gravel and some tracing power. They have a whole strategy as to how they're going to address it. So I'm excited. You guys should be excited because I've been getting calls and emails and pictures from everywhere, but it's a process. And I believe that they're going to do But I think it's going to be a success, the turnaround. We didn't always have a rodent issue out here. They had the water main break for the second time, I think in the beginning of the year. So they had to replace the pipes down on Vernon Boulevard from 40th Avenue all the way to Queens Plaza South, and disturbing the ground, and residents not properly disposing of the waste is what's causing the problem. So that being said, moving forward, we are going to work with waste management, and we're going to meet. We have a plan for some disposal containers that we are looking to see placed throughout the development, rodent retardant, and that should help us a lot. But as neighbors, we got to tap each other. You cannot throw food on the ground and think rats ain't coming out. They're coming out. They eat anything. So we have to take accountability as residents to combat the issue. And outside of that, those are some of the updates that some things that we've been working on. Collaboratively. Did I say that right? Collaboratively. That's the word. Together, we've been working on some things in Queensbridge, and there are a lot more changes to come. Again, I thank the residents for their support. Please continue to spread the word, have people come out, get the information. You can come in person, you can come on Zoom, but you need to show up. You can't keep complaining and not showing up. You can, but the productivity is going to be slim. We have a large influx of asylum seekers in Queensbridge, and I know residents have been really frazzled about them being present, how they're conducting themselves, but we need to be the first partakers, I believe. We need to set the example as residents, as a community. We need to set the tone. So we can't be mad about people putting blankets and picnicking on the grass and we grilling on the block and throwing our charcoal on the ground. It don't make sense. We really have to be the example, be what we want people, how we have to treat our development like we want other people to treat it. We mad because they're selling fruits and vegetables, right? On 21st Street, but we watching them sell drugs on the block. I'm confused. And these are our neighbors. They're not foreigners. The people that are doing this here, they are our neighbors. So let's come out, have the conversation, strategize on a way to circumvent every issue that you have in a development. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Woods-Haynes. Thank you so much. Appreciate your updates. And now we have Councilmember Julie Wong. Thank you for accepting our invitation to join tonight's meeting. Julie Wong represents the 26th Council District in Western Queens. Over to you, Julie.
Good evening. It's so good to see you all. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the Federal Monitor for making the time to come here. My name is Julie Wong. I'm the current council member representing this district. Can we give a big round of applause to Ms. Corinne Hayes and her whole entire team? We are so incredibly appreciative of her partnership, as well as Jacob Reese, where we're standing, as well as Urban Upbound, CCD, and all of our nonprofit partners who have been doing the work to make sure that we're supported. We have, I know that Ms. Hayes has covered a lot of the concerns, and we have some additional that we really want to highlight. First and foremost, it is unacceptable that there is a sinkhole at the Queensbridge playground right by here. We can give you the map location of exactly where it is for more than 3 years now. And the estimate that NYCHA is giving us is $40 million for this sinkhole to be fixed. This is a sinkhole. It does not matter how much it costs. People should not have to live with the sinkhole because of the danger that it imposes, especially to children, since it's on a playground. That needs to be fixed right now. And this community has had enough. The water main break that Ms. Hayes was talking about, that flooded more than once. That flooded up to 3 times, and it flooded people's cars, and they still have not had any compensation for their damage. That is unacceptable. From the comptroller's office and the state, city, both comptrollers' offices have denied their claims and have allowed their car to get flooded twice. We were finally able to have DEP repair the water main break, and that we're grateful for that. But that sinkhole is also related to that. That needs to be fixed. It also has led to flooding throughout these buildings, and it also created a whole new rat infestation in Queensbridge houses. We have more than 36 complaints for rat infestations because of maintenance issues that are being neglected. So we have individual cases that we're going to share with you so that you have which apartments have these maintenance issues where during their construction, the holes were never patched up. So now with the compilation of the water main break, with having all this new humidity and liquid and the summertime of the heat, not only are they having a rat infestation issue, they're also having cockroach infestation issues. The water bugs that are coming up into their apartments. It's disgusting. It is inhumane. And the maintenance issues, even though they created a ticket to make sure that all these walls are patched up, they haven't been patched up. And now they have creatures the size of my arm coming in through their apartment through these large open holes. Then it's unacceptable. We need to make sure that these maintenance issues are taken care of, in addition to the underlying issues of the water mains, the cockroaches, the rat infestation. The park right here, Queensbridge Park, it's covered with rats. So the tenants here cannot enjoy the public space because it's covered with rats the size of my thigh. It is really unacceptable. We've made multiple complaints to both NYCHA as well as DOHMH, and the rat infestation continues to be an issue both inside the apartments and outside of the apartments. So this is a huge issue, and it's a health issue. This is a health issue where their health, especially our seniors and children, are at risk because these rats and these roaches are in their food. It is in their houses. It is outside. There is nowhere they can get reprieve. So we really need to make sure that's taken care of. In addition to that, we do have a lot of migrant shelters that have been open in this district. We have the highest amount in Queens that we have no say whether we accept them or not. They just get opened. That means that the Queensbridge residents, because they're taking on the brunt of taking these migrants in, the nonprofits and the residents deserve more reprieve. So you need to give more funding to these nonprofits so that they can service the longer and longer lines that are growing to get groceries because they don't have money for food, as well as after school programming. The children are like coming out of the seams because we have all these new families, but there's no more funding for these after school programs or for youth programs for safety, for public safety, to make sure that we don't have rising crime. None of that money is coming in. So we need the federal government to do something because the federal government is the one that controls the immigration policy. Yet the feds have given us $150 million, which is not even comparable to what it costs us on a day. And it's supposed to be $6 to $8 billion for the city, and we've gotten $150 million. That's unacceptable. So the federal government really needs to step in and make sure that we're having appropriate immigration policies as well as funding for immigrants that this community has had to take the brunt of, and we're not getting any support. And talking about that for public safety, we have been struggling for more than 5 years now for the intercoms. When we talk about safety, you should have the basic ability to lock your doors and open them when you want to lock and open the door. Yet our intercoms have been broken for many years now. There's been an issue with the contract for the intercoms. It was the hardware of the intercom contract was no longer sold in the US because it took so long to acquire them or procure them. And by the time we were able to procure them, it was out of business. So now we're getting it from Canada and having them shipped from Canada. And the hardware that we're using is going to be obsolete by the time it's actually installed. And it's continuing to cause all of these delays where my tenants can't get in and out of their own apartments properly. And the buzzers don't work. So people are propping the doors open, and that is unsafe for the residents. And if we want to care for the safety of these residents, we have to make sure that their doors are at least closable and openable to their own accord, not forced. We have our own residents are being locked out. That's not acceptable. In addition to that, we have elevators that are broken still. Our seniors need working elevators. These are a lot of flight of steps for people to go in and out of, and we need our elevators fixed. I know that NYCHA is saying that it's all in the works, but we have to move faster because they're not growing any younger, and we want to make sure that our seniors are taken care of and that our families are safe. Yeah. So that's kind of the main highlights for Queensbridge houses. We want to make sure that it's safe. We want to make sure that it's clean. We have to take care of this rat infestation issue, and we need to get more funding for all of our residents to receive better services from the nonprofits, because the nonprofits now have an increase of residents as well as those living nearby from the 35 shelters that we have open, but they're not getting any more support. For Ravenswood houses, we have the same issue with right down the block. We have the same issues for rat infestations and cockroach infestations, as well as continuing to fight for a tenants association office. And I know that for Queensbridge, we're also working to expand the tenants association president's office. So we want to make sure that there's actual spaces for the tenants who want to volunteer, who want to do good for their communities. So that's still an ask that they have. And overall, they still have issues with security with their doors, because the doors are constantly broken because of intercom issues and security issues, and an overall a security threat. And then they have the same maintenance issues where open cases are open asking for maintenance of their buildings, and it's not being worked on properly, but it's closed before they're fully submitted. And overall, we have more than 36 transfer cases. There are a lot of families who want to be transferred, or individuals who want to be transferred into larger apartments or smaller apartments, and it's not happening. And each individual case has various details, whether it's a security issue, domestic violence issue, or someone who has someone deceased. And we also want to make sure that NYCHA is doing a better job of raising awareness for interim recertifications, so that if they themselves can no longer meet their rent amount, that they can get recertified by NYCHA to pay a lower amount if they qualify. So that way they are not getting evicted or having back rent. We want to make sure that we support them. So if anyone in the audience knows anyone that's struggling to pay their rent and needs to have a decrease in rent or wants to be recertified, please feel free to reach out to our office and we will assist you to go through that program. And in additionally, I know that Woodside Houses is here as well. At Woodside Houses, we have had the worst few years. I mean, it's been decades really of no heat and hot water consistently. It is unacceptable for people to live without heat and hot water. If it was any other building, Department of Buildings would have shut down these apartments and the landlord would have been fined and probably have gone to jail. So it is unacceptable that Woodside Houses has not had proper heat and hot water. We're going to continue to monitor to make sure that the heating plant was fixed. The heating plant was flooded during Hurricane Ida, which led to the outage of the heating plant, resulting in no heat and hot water for our residents. In addition to that, Woodside Houses has also had a lot of flooding. There's a lot of backwater that comes up into the buildings, especially the first floor and the second floors of these apartments that need to be fixed for all the sewage and the water mains. And in addition to that, they have the same issues for the rats and cockroaches. It is out of control. In Woodside Houses, we also had compactor issues, which is why it led to an over infestation of rats and cockroaches. It's disgusting. We have to make sure that in all three NYCHAs that there is an extermination of these rodents and the roaches, because it is in their food, it is in their it is in their homes, it's outside their homes, there's nowhere they can go, and it's going to lead to diseases, and it's a risk for their health. It's really unacceptable for them to be living in this condition. In addition to that, they also need maintenance for their own apartments. They need transfers, and they also need to make sure that their elevators and the doors are working properly. And they're also still waiting on their tenants association office space as well, because that was flooded. So it's a pattern where they themselves, even the volunteers, don't have a space to use. And we also have had requests in Queensbridge Houses from residents to have access to the basements, and they're being denied access to basements for community space, which should not be the case, because in previous years, community members were able to use basement empty spaces for community meetings. I think that's the most of it, and I will allow more people to speak, and you'll hear individual stories. I know that the last time we were here with the controller, there was so much frustration because we keep on having these meetings and we're screaming our head off, but I keep on getting the response from NYCHA saying that there's no funding, that we have to ask the governor, we have to ask the president, we got to ask everyone for funding, but we really, really need you to pay attention. And if there's anything that you remember from this meeting is that we need $40 million to fix a sinkhole. I don't know why it's $40 million to fix a sinkhole. It's big, it's maybe the size of this podium. And that's going to cost us $40 million. With that money, we could build them all a new apartment with $40 million. So Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. We will also email you the details of each case and an outline of all the NYCHAs in my district, because it really needs more attention. And we really hope the federal monitor will be able to bring light to these issues that people have been living with for decades that they do not deserve, because they're equally rent paying, they're volunteers, they're working really hard for the community and advocating, yet there has been no change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't represent Astoria Houses. That's Councilmember Tiffany Caban, but I do want to raise for Astoria Houses. They had gotten hit the hardest with the hurricane because they're right along the waterfront, and they really need help with waterfront resiliency. So there needs to be investment along the waterfront boardwalk to make sure that there's waterfront resiliency built in. And then they're having the same issues with their maintenance. I know that their intercoms, their elevators, their own individual apartments as well, and individual units. And they also have an issue with rat infestations and cockroach infestations. Again, we need to have serious extermination in all of these buildings. And for Astoria Houses, I have to implore you to make sure that there's an investment in public safety, because they have seen the highest amount of crime amongst all the NYCHAs, and it's been heartbreaking to see so many young people get killed by gun violence. And it, like, these grandparents and these parents who every single week are hearing about shootings and children being lost, it is heartbreaking. So I want to make sure that Astoria is highlighted for the need for public safety investments, for mental health investments, and youth programming, so that the youth have hope in where they're going with their futures, instead of feeling like they're hopeless and they have nothing to lose by engaging in these activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council Member Julie Wan. We appreciate your comments, and I know that the Federal Monitor team is prepared to address several of those issues that you mentioned. So we look forward to the monitorship update in just a bit. Our HUD Regional Administrator, Alika Amper-Samuel, you've been such a key stakeholder for the Federal Monitor team, and we're really happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. I have a list of notes here, but I know that this is a meeting that's always on time, and love to be able to stick to it. And I also know that the last hour of this meeting is hearing from the residents. And so I don't want to take any of that time away from being able to hear your voice, because the reason why we are all here is because of your voice during those court battles in the Southern District to get a federal monitor. And so now that I serve, so the last time I was here in this space was during that meeting in 2020, when I served on the New York City Council as the chair of the Public Housing Committee. And so now in this role as the regional administrator of HUD, I am 100% hands down. You already know the work that I did on the council and how committed and dedicated I am as a former public housing resident, as a former NYCHA resident myself. We are here every single day in the office, connecting with our public housing team, making sure that the conversations that you're having today and every day, the complaints, we're here to make sure that the monitor is doing what he is supposed to be doing. The Southern District is showing up, HUD is showing up, the city of New York, the state of New York. We're just making sure that we are at the table and pushing those action plans that you all will talk about later, making sure that they're being pushed forward. But I do want to say that just in April, this past April, 3 months ago, Secretary Marsha Fudge was here in Queensbridge. She was here with Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez doing a tour of the development. And a week before Secretary Fudge was here, the Secretary of the EPA was here, again with Nydia Velázquez. And the purpose of the secretarial level, cabinet level officials being here in Queensbridge is because we understand the need, because the President of the United States understands the need. There's a housing crisis across America, but you all been going through a crisis for decades, right? And we understand that, and we know that. And so we can we're here to listen to you, listen to the concerns to make sure that they're being addressed. But I also want to say that no matter what we see in the newspapers about the rats and the cockroaches and all of these deplorable conditions, when I go into your homes, they're beautiful. You do whatever you can to make a home when nobody else is supporting you. And so I just want to acknowledge the fact that I see you, and no matter what everyone else says, you're surviving and you're thriving, and you're here to show your voice. And sometimes I'm constantly trying to change that narrative. We know what you go through, but I love for people to see all of the great things that you do. When Ms. Woods Hayes talked about cleaning up the parks and just going out there as a community and showing people we love our community, we care about our community, so you need to treat all of us fairly. And that's why we are where we are today, because of your voice. So I wanted to just lift that up and just know that Secretary Fudge is here, she cares, and we are at that table in all the meetings every single day. And I'll be here for the duration of the meeting. And if you have questions or comments that you want to speak to me directly about, I'll be here. So thank you very much, Floretta.
I just wanted to announce that we are going to be looking to make an investment in Queensbridge Park for you all to build out a track or whatever else you need. So we'll be working with the Tenants Association president to set up a meeting with the Parks Department to do a walkthrough to hear your feedback. So we'll make sure that happens, and we'll continue to press on Department of Health and Mental Health to make sure that we get the rat infestation worked on. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Regional Administrator. And now we're back to our monitorship updates, and Bart, over to you.
Thank you, Floretta. Yeah, it's very difficult for all of us to know how much effort you've put in and how much effort we've put in, and how there are still problems, many problems that need to be solved. But none of us will give up. We'll continue to do the best that we can. And meetings like this are very helpful to us, and an important reminder to us that our job is not to make NYCHA better. Our job is to make the life of the residents better. And if we have to pull NYCHA along, we'll do that as well. I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the positive things that have happened over the last few years, and I want to do that because they are models, I hope, for future good things that will happen. And and Dennis, maybe I'm taking this away from you. Maybe you had planned to talk about this, but forgive me. It's one that I think is very important, that really has gotten some attention, but not enough attention. The ventilation systems and fans on the roofs of the buildings had been in disrepair or insufficient for circulation of air in the apartments. In addition to that, the ducts in the buildings in some buildings had never been cleaned. Many people, it was not scientifically proven, but many people believe that COVID spread in part because of the lack of ventilation. And it's clear that mold was growing because of the lack of ventilation. We insisted, as the monitor, we insisted that NYCHA come up with a program to fix the fans and make some changes. We met some resistance, not from the current administration at NYCHA. I want to draw a distinction. But we met some resistance in the past, and what we heard is what you hear all the time. We don't have the money. How are we going to do it? We don't have the funding. And Dennis in particular, I give him credit for this. He just not would take no for an answer. He said, you've got to find a way to do it. You've got people who have expertise. And eventually NYCHA put together a team, and it was a team that decided they wanted to get it done right. They wanted to do it. And so pretty much within the deadlines that we set, almost 7,000 fans, about 6,500 fans were installed, and about another 500 were found to be adequate. So about 7,000. Is that correct, Dennis?
About 6,200 new fans put in and another 2,000 or more that were certified as
Okay.
fit for purpose.
And that was completed on time, even though there were difficulties with the supply chain and other things. It was completed pretty much on time. Then we insisted on the duct work being done, clean the duct work. That is almost completed, or a great many of the ductwork areas have been cleaned. What we have found, and this is not a scientific study, but what we have found is that mold complaints are down approximately 50% across NYCHA, from it was 1,700 a month to about 800 a month now. Or is it? It's even
actually
better.
better than that.
It's
Yeah.
even better than that. So when we can get people to get the work done, there are solutions to the problems. And I want to cover a couple of others because they're certainly relevant to Councilmember Wan's number of the issues that you raised. I've kept a list. I have to be honest, they're not all monitor issues. I can't do all of this, but I can group a whole bunch of them into environmental health and safety. Well, what we did when I was appointed, within 45 days, we established an environmental health and safety committee, a department at NYCHA, a compliance department, an environmental health and safety department, and a quality assurance department. So one commitment I'll make to you right now is that tomorrow we'll be on the phone to the environmental health and safety department and ask them, what are they doing here? And what do they plan to be doing here? And I'd be happy to report back to you on what we could find out to see if we can press them to get an answer to why it's $40 million. One of the things with NYCHA is when they don't want to do things, and this is more the old administration, which I'll get to in a moment, but when they don't want to do things, they give you a price for the entire portfolio instead of a price for fixing the problem that's in front of you. And we understand that. We don't take that as an acceptable answer. A little bit about elevators, because there are really two sides to the elevator issue. There's building new elevators, and there is repairing the current elevators. We brought in elevator experts who serve the commercial world and private sector, and said, help the elevator team at NYCHA figure out how they can do a better job. And what the company is called Turner and Townsend, well-known nationally, internationally. What Turner and Townsend did with our working with them is to show NYCHA how you could take information that you have, analyze it, and from that figure out how to approach the problems you have. So very simply, Maximo is filled with information, but NYCHA was not taking advantage of it. Now what they do with their analytics, and there are programs that have demonstrated this, and now they have to be broadened. But let's stay with elevators. What they did was studied the outages and the cause of the outages, compared that to the preventive maintenance that was done, what kind of preventive maintenance, and a whole list of issues about how to manage and care for elevators. Then from that, they realized the best service and preventive maintenance approach to take based upon the outage history of elevators. So then the elevator team changed its approach to how they inspected elevators. There were really essentially three kinds of inspections. Maybe it's two to be more accurate, but I always divide it into three. One was an on-site inspection. You look at it. Everything looks good, you leave it alone. I'm not sure that's a great way to figure out whether an elevator is working, but that was one of the inspections. Second inspection is you go in and you take things apart. You lubricate, you do what needs to be done. And then the third would be if there was a major issue. And not surprisingly, the analytics showed that if you go into the elevator and even if you don't see a problem, you still lubricate, you still look at it, you take things apart. If you do that, the number and length of outages goes down dramatically. Once you do that, then you have more workers that are available to do more preventive maintenance because there are fewer breakdowns in operations and the breakdowns take less time. And so you break that cycle of not caring for it, it breaks down and you don't have time to care for the next one. And in one of the projects that we did, you may have to help me on this one, Dan, but in a very brief time, NYCHA generated about, is it 200 hours of additional work time without hiring a single additional person. We freed up 200 more hours of elevator repair time when it was needed. So taking that model, we're applying it everywhere we can so that NYCHA can do more work with the same number of people instead of, it would be nice to have more money, but if we're not going to have more money and we're not going to have more people, then we've got to get more work done with the people who are here. And this is not the fault of the workers. Don't misunderstand me. The workers were doing what the managers told them to do, but the managers were not managing them properly. Now they are, and we're getting much more efficiency out of it. But when your president spoke, and I think you started by saying, I wrote it down, that you're preparing for summer. Well, we're already preparing for winter. But the next step that we've taken is to make sure that there are, and Dan, you're probably going to cover some of this, but to have programs during the summer to fix the problems with the boilers and the delivery system where you can before the winter, not when the winter occurs. Yeah. And so the good news, and sometimes people don't like to even hear the good news, but the good news is that NYCHA is learning more about how to do these things correctly and properly and effectively. And if they can spread it not from development to development and from area to area, it will make a difference, and it is making a difference already. One thing, and I want to talk about one other thing because I'm particularly proud of it, and it's one that's been primary for me, and that is lead-based paint and lead in the apartments. When I took over as monitor, we asked NYCHA to do a survey of how many apartments probably had lead and children under 6. That's the age level, and as I'm sure you all know, that you cannot reverse the damage that lead does. So every minute counts when it comes to lead poisoning. Children under 6 living in an apartment with lead-based paint or visiting more than a certain number of hours a day. And we said, okay, NYCHA, tell us how many apartments there have to be examined. I'm not saying they're all problems, but have to be examined. And NYCHA came back and said there were about 3,500 apartments. And I was new at it, but I said out of 170,000 apartments, there are only 3,500 that have lead-based paint and a child under 6. And he said, how did you figure this out? And they explained the methodology, and it was a methodology designed to keep the number as low as possible. For example, they didn't go to any senior houses. And grandchildren are there, right? They didn't go to a single senior house. So we said, you got to go back and you got to do it the right way. And we told them ways that we want them to do. Then they got serious about it, and they really tried to do the right thing. And please don't misunderstand this number I'm going to give you. This doesn't mean that all these apartments have a problem, but it means all these apartments need to be checked. The number went from 3,500 to 32,000. 10 times the apartments that needed to be looked at. And well, that's part of it. And that progress is now taking place. So now NYCHA actually has the best led program in the country. It's a model for other housing authorities. And maybe some of you have seen it, but you can go to the NYCHA website, and if a woman thinks she's pregnant or knows she's pregnant and a baby's going to be born, you can click on the website, and NYCHA will do a special test of that apartment before the child is even born. So every moment can be saved. And as I said, that's critical for a child. So there are things that we're doing that maybe don't get the headlines, and sometimes they do, I'm happy to say, but maybe they don't always, and you don't always see it. But progress there is being made. And there's more. I'm happy to say I could give you a longer list of things that are working, but I also could give you a very long list of things that are not working. So I'm not, I'm not kidding myself about this. But I do want to end this on this note. For the last year, Lisa Bova Hyatt has been the temporary CEO of NYCHA, and just the other day was named the permanent CEO of NYCHA. She has been a great partner in helping accomplish some of the things I'm talking about and other things, working with us, wanting our help, wanting to use our experts, and having her staff and her leadership take the same responsibility. In addition to that, and this may sound like it's not as a direct benefit for you, but I really believe it'll be a great benefit for you over time, and something I've been fighting for since the beginning. NYCHA combined the CEO and the chairperson of the organization. And that is a mistake. The CEO should be focused on day-to-day operations, getting things done today. The chairperson thinks much more about the future. And if you're spending all your time thinking about the future, then operations don't work. Now that job has been split. The mayor has split it along with the Southern District and HUD and all the agreement. I'm the last one who gets to agree. I'm the only one who's not a signatory to the agreement. I just have to do it. So now you have a full-time CEO who is permanent. You have a part-time, but that's sufficient. You have a part-time chairperson who will be dealing with the issues with the elected officials, with all the other things that a chairperson does, and the CEO can focus on the day-to-day problems. And I've met with Jamie Rubin, who's the new chairperson. I met before he was appointed, and I have to tell you, I was very impressed with his approach, his commitment, and his experience. He's highly regarded, highly respected. He's one of these people who gets things done. And I am very optimistic about the team that's in place at NYCHA now and working with that team. So again, it's there's a lot to be done. You'll get to hear about some of the RAT program and other things. It's taken us, we're talking about tests for 2 to 3 years. We've been telling NYCHA that the organization of their PET team is disorganized, that it's not organized in a way to achieve the best results. Because I learned a fair amount about this, not as much as the experts certainly, but you've got to go back. You've got to go back. You can't just, if it's one apartment, you have to look at the apartments surrounding it. Yeah, and they were not organized in a way to do that effectively. All they were doing was giving you a number of apartments they went to, but that wasn't solving the problem. This year, earlier this year, they agreed to revamp their entire organization, adopting pretty much 99% of we've asked them to adopt. Say, I can't, and for most things, I can't really force them to change. I can't do the day-to-day changes, but this one, the merit of our argument was so strong, and the fact that they were failing so badly, they realized they would try it, and they're already showing some benefits from the new system, which was written and is being overseen by experts who we've brought in, and we're paying to make sure they oversee it. So you know, I am by nature an optimistic person. Maybe you could tell that. But I have reason to think that progress will continue. Things will get better, but we can't for a moment take our foot off the pedal. You got here by making sure that people listen to you, and that's the only way it's going to work. HUD is listening. The Southern District is listening. I really believe that NYCHA is now listening, and I assure you that we are listening. And you can always contact us. Even just being here today, before the meeting started, someone came up to me with a problem for a single apartment. I'm not supposed to be dealing with single apartments. I'm supposed to be dealing with big issues. But you can't say no when somebody has a problem, whether it's a health problem or whatever it is. If you have problems with single apartments, call us. We'll find a way to help. Maybe we can't fix it, but maybe we can influence it getting fixed faster. We want to be helpful, and we'll continue to be that way as we go forward. So I don't know when we're opening up the questions. We still have some presentation to do, and I do want you to hear them, although I probably stole their thunder for most of it. But I wanted to bring it together so that you could hear it and understand how we're going to be seeing that whatever is working goes across the board, not just in one place and then abandoning it. We're going to get it to work for all the developments. So I thank you, and I look for your support, and if we're not doing it right, I know you'll tell us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Swartz. Great update. We appreciate it. We're gonna go right to heat and elevators. Dan, do you want to just touch on some of the slides that are on the screen?
Yeah, I'm just going to make this quick. So there's a good part to this, and then there is a part that needs to be worked on a lot more. So the good part to this, and this is elevators, and I'm sure any of you that have been on the Monitor website have seen these kind of visuals that summarize some of the data analytics. So the good news is, with regard to the heating systems, the boiler rooms, that we've been, the agreement mainly focuses on the heating source, the boilers in the buildings, and not so much on the individual unit problems. So the main focus of, which in a way makes sense. So the main focus of the Monitor heating team is to focus on making sure that NYCHA is doing what they can to keep the boilers operational. So in the last couple of years, we've really been focusing with them on the summer preventive maintenance program. And you can see from the winter, not the winter we just went through, but the one before, there were 546 outages. And this year there are 30% less, 379 outages. And I'm predicting, and I'm hoping that I'm right, because the summer program is even better this year, that unless we have Arctic weather in the coming winter, that number will go down even significantly more. But the thing that I want to say, as I said, is the unit heat problem. The problem there is that the building piping, the pipes that take the heat from the boiler rooms up to the units are falling apart. I don't know what they're like exactly at Queensbridge houses, but I know in Manhattan and the Bronx, they're a disaster. And in many other developments across the city, they are as well. And so that's the thing that we really want to get NYCHA to focus more on, to at least be able to go into a unit that's not getting proper heat and do a root cause analysis as to why that's happening, and to do a more comprehensive study of those buildings that really need to have the pipes completely fixed so that the heat gets to the units. If you could go 2 slides from now. So this is the thing that Bart was talking about with regard to elevators. So the big thing with elevators are 60% of NYCHA's elevators are still in use beyond the manufacturer's intended lifespan. Queensbridge houses, as you all know, is in the middle of getting replacements done. They're going to get 50 replaced within the next 2 years. You have single elevators, which means every time they take one down to do a replacement, you have no elevator service in that building. Ms. Woods Haynes, one of the things that I would like to do, because NYCHA has now finally ramped up their replacement projects, is to speak to you. We've been speaking with some of the NYCHA staff about the assistance that the development staff has been providing to some of the residents, particularly those with physical needs and things that have a hard time. And that's something that NYCHA needs to do a lot better doing that. So at some point, we're going to reach out to you, because they've been here now for 6 or 7 months, and it would be good to get your assessment in terms of what's working and what's not working and what needs to be improved. But going back to this particular slide, 2.5 years ago, we started a program, as Bart indicated, to improve their preventive maintenance on their old elevators. So we started at Mott Haven and we started at Patterson, 2 developments in the Bronx that had particularly bad elevators. And as you can see over time, these are the number of outages after the pilot programs were performed, and they were 6 and 7 month programs to improve their maintenance, that the number of outages declined dramatically. And then the last one is Boston Road. They replaced the elevators. And of course, when the elevators were replaced, those particular outages went from 44 in 2021 down to 5 so far this year. So again, with the replacements, we're also seeing a dramatic decrease in the number of elevator outages. So that's really critical. So anyway, I will give up the microphone at this particular point, and we'll go on to somebody else.
Just to add with respect to the elevators, as new elevators go into service, they need less attention than the old elevators. That also frees up more people to do more preventive maintenance on the older elevators, and it should also reduce the outages, both in the number and the length. Yeah, well, I asked the question when the presentation was made to us. I said, well, in a new elevator, do you need more service at the beginning, or do you need less service? And they said, clearly less service. So that's going to free up more people to do more work on the elevators that really need it. And now this is operations. Capital is different. NYCHA's way behind in capital. Originally, they said 102.
No, 115.
115. They did 20. That's new capital. They have reassessed the way they are working their capital projects just recently, and they brought in some new people. And I don't know what the official number is, but it's a lot better than 20. That I don't know if they've released it yet. I hope they will soon, but it's a lot better than 20. And that obviously is important to get those the new elevators in.
Thank you. Thank you, Bart. Thank you, Dan. We're on to you, Dennis.
Thanks, Loretta. lead, I want to give you some really good numbers. In 2019, when the monitor's office came in, NYCHA only abated, that means remove the lead. Don't just paint over it, remove the lead completely. There were only about 700 apartments that were completely abated in 2019. At mid-year this year, NYCHA has already abated over 2,200 apartments. It's a phenomenal increase. They are on track to average for the balance of the year over 450 apartments each month. This program has been ramped up from a trickle to a real river of accomplishment. And I really have to credit the hard work that NYCHA has done, spearheaded by Dan Green and his team at the Lead Hazard Control Unit, their vendors. The program that they put together is part of the Lead Action Plan that BART approved in late 2020. And this process involved us imploring, working with NYCHA to say, what do you think you can do? And then we asked for more. And it was collegial, it worked, but I think we were here to try to help them realize their potential to help the residents. So I think the numbers in lead are astonishing. We've got the TEMPO program to protect children under 6 and persons who are pregnant in apartments that have or are suspected to have lead paint. The TEMPO repair unit is fixing apartments. They're doing visual assessments twice a year when they only had to do it once a year. So NYCHA is going the extra mile on lead. And I just want to draw everybody's attention to that. They've done a very good job, and I expect they will continue to do an even better job in the years going forward. Just briefly on mold, Bart mentioned the success of the ventilation project, where there were over 6,200 new fans installed. These are the fans that draw the air out of the apartments, particularly the bathrooms. You've got to get the air out because it's got moisture in it. And if you don't do that, if you can't remove the air, you're going to get mold, I guarantee it. But the other part of that was cleaning out these vents. Bart mentioned they hadn't been cleaned in decades. Since the action plan for mold was approved in the beginning of 2020, and some of this work was done during the pandemic, which is a remarkable achievement as well, over 73,000 vents have been cleaned. A remarkable number of vents. So when you look at the statistics, this project alone has dropped the average number of new founded mold complaints by over 50%. They peaked in October of 2021 at over 1,700 new cases that were confirmed by inspection. And right now, NYCHA is averaging under 700 new cases a month. Complaints are down in the first place. Not every complaint yields a founded inspection. And there are other things that are being done. And I want to mention that there is a very good and close relationship that we have as the Federal Monitor's Office with the Baez plaintiffs, with the Baez court-appointed experts, the independent mold analyst, Dr. Bill Southern, and the independent data analyst, Neil Steinkamp from Stout. We've recently given a significantly long list of recommendations to NYCHA as to how they can further improve their performance. And they're taking it very seriously. We've asked for their response to each one of these recommendations in writing, and we expect to have those responses in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to begin a dialogue. If they say they can't do something, we're going to ask why. And if we think they can do better, we're going to implore them to do better.
Thank you, Dennis. Now we're on to Austin Ways. Tamika.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know there's been a lot of talk today about pest issues and NYCHA developments, but NYCHA is getting better. It's slow progress, but it's getting better. I'm gonna show you here today. What we're going to talk about here today are the 4 pest types, which are roaches, mice, bed bugs, and rats. Okay, before 2019, which is prior to COVID, there were 8,276 pest complaints per month, and that number was growing. After COVID, 2021, those complaints went down by 57%. So that number went down to 3,595 complaints, and it's steady going down. What I'm going to show you here today is identifiable factors, markers that you can help us and help NYCHA be effective in pest control. So the first picture here, you see a rat, and then underneath that picture, you'll see rat burrows. What we need you to do is when you walk the grounds of your community, we need you to identify those rat burrows and call the 707 number. If you don't have it, I'll give it to you today. It's 718-707-7771. Okay. The second picture here is a mouse, okay? There are mice sightings in the units. One of the issues here is that this mice has access to food, pet food. So a lot of times the pet food is being left out at night. The roaches, the mice, they're eating and they're feeding off of that. Bed bugs is another issue that we see in NYCHA developments a lot. Here you can see the bed bug carcasses and frass from the bed bugs along the bedding. And finally, you'll have the German roaches, and this is cockroach frass that you will see in your cabinets. You'll see it along the utility lines in your apartment. You'll find it in your closets. And so we're doing things to help NYCHA to improve this. Next slide. But we need your help. The number is 718-707-771, and that's NYCHA CCC telephone number. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of graphs, okay? This is basically explaining the information that I just gave you. As you can see, the line in the middle is COVID. Prior to COVID, the number of pest work orders total were off the roof, as you can see here, right? There were spikes in the middle of the years, spikes at the beginning. After COVID, we had a drastic decline in resident complaints. That's what you see here. As we got into COVID, you started to see those numbers spike again. Next slide, please. Here are the number of bed bug complaints. And as you will see slide after slide, it's the same, you'll see the same trends, right? So prior to COVID, you see the spikes year after year. During COVID, you saw a decline. And then you saw small waves and they're leveling out. That's what we want to see. We want to see bed bugs leveling out, right? We want to see all the complaints leveling out. And that's what you have here. Next slide, please. These are the German cockroaches, all right? As you can see, prior to COVID, there were spikes each year from 2017 to 2020, which was the start of COVID. During COVID, that number decreased drastically, and then it started to spike again. Okay, next slide. These are the number of mouse work complaints. And as you will see, it follows the same pattern as all of the rest of the pests, right, that we've seen thus far. Next slide, please. This is the number of rat complaints. And as you can see, this one looks a little bit different than what we've seen prior, right? You see the spikes prior to COVID. During COVID, you see a small decrease, but you see a drastic increase in pest complaints. That could be for a number of reasons. During COVID, a lot of restaurants, commercial spaces got shut down, and those rats migrated into residential communities. Okay. Slide. So now I'm going to talk to you about waste. This is a 90-day snapshot of each borough for WAMR ratings. Now, this is an assessment of each development, right? But here we're looking at it as a total, as a borough. Each development, and there is a rating scale. 5, we can think of it as a hotel or a restaurant rating scale, which is a 5-star. Here, as you can see, Staten Island is close to that. So Staten Island has rated consistently high with maintenance and cleanliness in the developments. The second highest is Queens, then you'll have Brooklyn, then you'll have Manhattan, and as you can see, the Bronx is last. So in conclusion,
Sorry for interrupting, but what's interesting, what you can't see from this slide is that before we got involved, there was no scale for measuring cleanliness. It was totally inconsistent throughout NYCHA. We put together a system to identify cleanliness from 0 to 5. I think it's 1 to 5. And we created software to take pictures and to develop information to try to get consistency across NYCHA so that people were talking about the same thing. And we obviously we try to be fair about it. You know, we didn't wait for there to be a storm and a lot of paper flowing around and then measure. It was really an effort to make a fair assessment as to how well the staff was performing at a particular development. And if it didn't look good, what were the reasons? Was it the staff? Was it in some places it's the wind or whatever it may be? But this gave we've developed the software, our own software engineers. This is something we're giving to NYCHA so that it can take it to the future to work with it, improve it if they want, whatever it may be. But this is a tool which is a way to get consistency at a high level throughout the developments. Sorry.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Bart. And so 50% of the score is taken from the interior of the development and the buildings, and the other 50% is taken from the exterior part of development. And so that's what you have here. And let me just give you what WAMA stands for. I know you see it says average WAMA rating. WAMA stands for Waste Management Measurement Application. And as Bart said, we are the priority.
Yeah, I always think it's a 1960s song.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Rush. Thank you, Floretta.
Thank you, Tamika. Now on to our community and resident engagement work stream update. We're starting with Edna.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'll be quick and because I know we want to get to hear from you and hear from you in depth as to what we're calling the lived experience. And it's all about what you experience every day. It's one thing for us to give you data and say, this is what we're finding. But if we give you data and you say, I don't think so, then we need to understand why there's a gap there. And then to take measures to ensure that what the data is showing is what you're living and experiencing every day. If there's improvement, you should feel it. If there's not, you should feel it, and you should let us know on both instances. And so how do we do that? We have basically what you've heard the monitor and Dan and others talk about, the action plan. Well, we have basically an action plan for community and resident engagement. You have copies of the agreement. It's on our website, but it comes in 3 ways. And I'm just going to briefly say what the ways in which we want to seek your lived experience. And Asha will talk to you about how we have done that. But if you go to page 7, it basically says in section 4D, 29, the monitor shall engage NYCHA stakeholders, including residents, regarding matters related to the agreement. 30, the monitor shall periodically, but at least quarterly, convene a community advisory committee. 31, the monitor shall establish for the monitor communicate with and solicit comments from residents, et cetera. And now I'd like to give it to Asha to show you how we've been doing that, and then we will hear from you as to how well we are doing it.
Thank you, Edna, and thank you all for being here. So the most important thing that we do in our role is to listen to all of you and then try to make sure that we are elevating your issues and your concerns in those rooms when we're with NYCHA and in the rooms with the monitor team so that your issues are first and foremost at the table at all times. So one of the things we did very first thing when we first started the monitorship was we went around to every single development and we sat down with April at the time, but whomever was your resident president, we sat down with the boards, we walked the grounds, we got to know the development and the issues and concerns that you have. And then since then, particularly when COVID hit, we maintained those relationships by just calling. Someone from our team would call as we're approaching each development's borough meeting. We would call all of the resident presidents. We'd ask you to get in touch with your residents to let us know what are the issues, what are the concerns. Call us, write us at any time. So we try to keep that up as we're talking so that we can hear your concerns, as we'll get to in a moment. And then one of the things we do is we have a community advisory committee, the CAC, where we have people from HUD, the city council, NYPD, the fire department, DIFTA, et cetera, that will sit down and we basically have interagency collaboration around these particular issues. What can we do? Just breaking through the red tape to just come up with some solutions. So some of the issues that have come up, for example, was that, FDNY was breaking down doors. And it's one thing when they did it when it was a true emergency, but sometimes they were doing it just unnecessarily. And so that was one of the things that we dealt directly with the FDNY, like, okay, well, let's make sure there's key fobs. Let's make sure you have training videos. Let's make sure you have the keys. And that's something that they've made progress on since we've been meeting regularly. We also have a safety subcommittee where we sit down with NYPD, FDNY, NYCHA safety security folks and talk through these issues in terms of, what are you guys doing for safety plans? What are you doing about these door problems? What are you doing about the intercoms? And trying to force them to come up with solutions, because as we all know, safety and security is one of the number one issues on everybody's minds and hearts. Another big issue that we heard about was just having transparency in terms of, well, what projects are being done at a particular development? What are the capital repair projects going on? How come, I see scaffolding going up and I don't know where it's what's it for, when it's gonna be down, all of those things. So, and Edna could talk more, but we had them start a NYCHA capital tracker that's gonna be rolled out later this summer, where you can just go in and see the progress on different projects. Another thing we heard a lot of complaints about when we first went around was that the recertification process in of itself was inefficient and burdensome, and the portal was hard to read and follow, and had all of these problems. So they committed to do a recertification portal redesign project. And that you probably have seen already, a new and improved portal. And again, any of these things, as Edna said, if your lived experience is that it's not up to par, let us know. We want your feedback because you are the eyes and ears on the ground. So a lot of those things we were hearing about, and we just keep elevating those issues in our PAC meetings and in NYCHA meetings. And then to talk a little bit about section 1, we continue doing, even during COVID, having those community meetings virtually in each borough. Now this is our kickoff meeting back in person. So as Bart said, it's wonderful to see all of you in person. We try to engage with the newly elected board members because our contact oftentimes had just been with the president, and we wanted to talk to more of the board members. And we thank all of you for your leadership on the board roles, because it's so important, the volunteer work that you do as leaders in our community. And we also check in regularly with the NYCHAs. They've changed the name, but they also had a resident engagement group that just got restructured. So we talk with them about what they're doing, what their initiatives are, et cetera. And they have started a resident roundtable where they have 30 plus residents who represent the different neighborhoods to talk through many of these issues that are of concern, and particularly like lease enforcement issues, safety and security issues, and we'll meet regularly with them as well. So just in the interest of time, I will yield, but keep in mind that this meeting isn't our only opportunity to hear from you. Please email us, call us, come to our community meetings. You can watch the CAC meetings on the YouTube channel. And then if you have individualized concerns for your personal development or your building or your apartment, NYCHA is here. They can write down any of your concerns. They're on the side of the room. So that if you don't want to say anything publicly, they are here to write down your concerns as well.
We'll just leave with one example of how you might have already seen the monitor and interacted with the monitorship and not really appreciated it. Well, we have field investigators. So when you look at number 3, the communication procedures, they write reports. Those reports come to us. You've seen them down and through and post-COVID. If you don't know about these things, we really implore you to go to our website. We implore you, we have a complaint escalation process. We implore you to really look at the opportunities to engage either through the meetings or through the CAC meetings. So this basically is our action plan, and we're asking you to hold us to it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add, Asha and Ed have done a great job with this CAC committee, because the HUD agreement doesn't tell you what the CAC committee is supposed to do or how it's supposed to work. And we've come up with the idea, and with Edna and Asha's leadership, they've made it sort of an interagency group with representatives from NYCHA, from the developments, the city agencies and so forth. And you went quickly past the fire department one. I just want to go back to that a little bit. When we heard complaints that doors were being damaged when the residents thought it was not necessary, it turned out it was more complicated than that. That sometimes the fire department would arrive at a fire, but they were coming from a distant station and they didn't have keys or fobs to get in. The only way they could get in was to break down a door or damage a door. So now, as a result of the work that this CAC committee has done, every firehouse has the keys and the fobs for the developments in their district, but also neighboring units, so that if they're out on a call and a neighboring unit has to do it, it gets covered. And I've got to tell you, the cooperation of the fire department has been terrific in trying to help solve this problem. We couldn't solve it unless they were really interested in helping. You know, there were some people who said, well, what is the monitor doing talking about breaking down doors? It's not in the, where is that in the agreement? Well, every time there's damage, money is wasted because you have to start to repair it again. And then there are other problems that occur, as we talked about before, relating to safety and security. And then we made those arguments, and everybody said, yes, that's right. It's part of what you should be doing and part of helping. So that CAC committee has been I think sort of a hidden gem in all of the HUD agreement, because it's been able to cover so many different issues and have people sitting around the table discussing the solutions, including the chief of security for NYCHA, who attends all of the CAC meetings.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you for all of the pillar leads that have given monitorship updates, or very important updates. We are now on to our next guest speaker, which is our NYCHA representative. Her name is Carol Reed. She is the housing administrator for Queens, and she's going to give us a quick update. Let's give her a hand.
Everyone, can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Carol Reed. I am the neighborhood administrator covering Queensbridge North, South, and Ravens. Those are all my preview, but I do know a little bit about the rest of the locations. So the update is, as everyone said, really took all my thunder, but Queensbridge is in the process of getting elevators modernization. So they are doing 7 elevators at a time on both the north and south. So Ms. Haynes actually walked with us, NYCHA, the vendor, and elevators to actually do a walkthrough to see how these elevators work. Sorry. So we walked through, we did a test run. We went up and down in the elevator. They showed us that there is a call button that dials straight out to call if anybody's stuck in the elevator. The ventilation is beautiful right now. We did have questions, which they were happy to answer us. So as of right now, on the north side, there are 4 elevators that have been placed back in service. They were placed back in service on June 16th. And from June 16th to June 30th, they constantly checked them and ran them. Somebody was on the premises to make sure they were working properly. 7 were taken out altogether, 4 were placed in service, 3 have not been placed in service because, again, it's a process. After the elevators are put in, repaired, they have to do what they call a punch list, where they have to make sure that everything, if they see a screw is loose. No, I need this done. This has to be perfect before we put this in, because again, it's servicing our residents. So 3 of them have not been put in service. So as of right now, we have 3 from phase 1, which was from the beginning of January until June 16th, that are not in service. Being that those are not in service yet, they only took out an additional 3, because they only have 7 out at a time. So if 3 have not been put in, they're not going to take an additional out, if you understand what I'm saying. So right now we're waiting for that punch list. We're waiting for that to be cleared before it can be put into service. On the south side, we haven't had the walkthrough as of yet, but the same thing goes there. There's only going to be 7 elevators out at a time. NYCHA is aware of everyone's need as far as assistance going up and down the stairs. We are scheduling appointments through management. You call management, let them know what time I'm going to be home, what time I'm getting off of work. We accommodate. We have a stair climber. We actually have caretakers and staff on site to help even with bags for our seniors and our disabled. Okay, so we are trying to accommodate, because again, this is a process that's going to be going on for 2 years. So we're doing our best to address that. The other thing Councilwoman Wong brought up was our intercom. So as of right now, like I said, I cover Queensbridge, North, South, and Ravenswood. From the check of the system, when I first got here, we did have a lot of intercoms out of service. So right now, Queensbridge North has 19 out of service right now. So what happens is we don't just close tickets here. When it comes to intercoms, until a resident has signed off and we have had that conversation, you see that it works, the ticket stays open until it's repaired. So right now, the vendor has done the work, but there's an issue with phone numbers. So we have to make sure, like this is why I'm saying this to everyone. If you change your number at any time, contact the management office. Let them know your number has changed so that we can put it in the system so your phone can ring to, intercom can ring to that phone number, whether it's your cell phone or your house phone number. Other than that, it's not going to work. Okay, so like I said, QBN has 19 out of service. Southside only has 3. Ravenswood has 3 as well. So we've been working really hard on intercoms. Another thing with the doors, like the federal monitor said, with front doors, doors are a very serious issue with us. Yes, they break them. So I know for all of Queens, Staten Island, when a door is broken, at the end of the day, we cannot repair that door. We do let NYPD know that that door is out of service and that we need you to come and be vigilant to let us know that you need to check those doors periodically. We are working hard on them, but again, vandalism happens and these doors are very expensive and they can't be fixed overnight. But we're working as hard as possible to get them repaired as soon as they break. So I implore anybody that has issues with repairs. I'm not going to do it now because I want to respect everyone's time, but I am going to be here at the end of the day. At the end of the meeting. If you want to come by, please see me. If you have tickets, that would be perfect. It's a better follow-up for me. But again, there are a lot of things like the federal monitor said that NYCHA is working to fix. A lot of things have been broken. We're trying to repair it. We're trying to gain trust. We're trying to make sure that we are following through with work orders and getting repairs done and removing the stigma of tickets being closed and no one's being there. Okay, so I ask people to be patient. We're trying. And I think that's all I had. Ms. Haynes already spoke about the rats, so we're working about rats removal within the development, outside and inside the basements as well, because again, they're going back and forth. Our basements are a food source, so we're working on that very hard because no one wants rats in our neighborhoods. Other than that, I think I'm done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Reed. We appreciate your time. We are going to move forward. We're close to our Q&A with our Queens residents, and Manny Martinez, who is our Resident Association President for South Jamaica, is going to open up with an update, and then we'll go right into our Q&A. Let's welcome Mr. Martinez.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Queens South, how you guys doing? And Queens North, how you guys doing? It is an honor to be here. Please give it up for the Federal Monitor team for their presentation tonight. And it's good to note that the agreement started in 2019, January. We are now 5 years, close to 5 years for the agreement, and we have seen significant changes in our communities. Is it enough? And I'm not speaking to their efforts, but is it enough? Do we still see the same kind of patterns? I've had conversations with presidents throughout the city who tell me that they still have to monitor the management office to get them to do the same things. It feels like we're the ones doing the job, right? We have dirty stair halls and just things that should be upkept, basically not being met. This is something that is constant. This is something that the Federal Monitor team cannot address. Because remember, they are monitoring. But we, as the resident councils and as the residents who have ownership within the Section 9 program, the only program that allows for this, we are the ones who are now bridging that gap. And so the question that was posed to me is, what does Queens residents want? Now, the thing is with that is what Queens residents wants is what every resident who lives in the New York City Housing Authority development throughout the city, 5 boroughs want. It appears that we have become a people under NYCHA. The same experiences everywhere you go. I've walked to other developments and it's been corrected since, but had rats walk along with me on the fence, keeping up, looking at me. What you here for? And so we have to take note of what's going on. Right now, we love our NYCHA employees. We have a lot of great ones. We also have some that punch in to punch out. And sadly, some of those are property managers. When I hear a property manager who's making close to 6 figures or more says that's not my job, when they have the responsibility of the entire development, then we have an issue, right? Now, when we start looking at the funds and we start going higher up, right? So just looking at the office of the CEO and the office of the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, the personnel and non-personnel expenses for those 2 departments currently is $206 million. That is a lot of change for a staff of under 100. Just 2 departments, $200 million. We got to start looking at that. So when we have resident council presidents and community members, when we're looking at the contracts that they are talking about, that 3,000 fans and elevators, and the fact that right now actively NYCHA has $6 billion in active contracts. Some of them are legacy contracts, means that they are on the old Section 3 regulation, which has a 10% Section 3 subcontracting mandate, which means that if the job is $20 million, $2 million has to go to a Section 3 subcontractor, which trains and hires from our community. And currently that number is 0. A donut. And it's been a donut for the last 10 years. When we start talking about that our communities need money, but the money they don't have, well, because they splitting it at the top. But also the funds that's coming into our communities are supposed to be redistributed in our communities through training, employment, through contracting. It's not happening. And when I ask it, I want to say one thing too, Miss Alika Ampry, the Honorable Alika Ampry Samuel. I remember when we first met in Manhattan at a fight about conversions and a whole lot of these problems here. And I remember us talking, and from there, when she became the public housing, I am so happy that she's where she's at, and I'm so proud to have been in this fight with her for so long. This was 6 years ago. So, but now I bring up all of this to say that what it is that we want is respect. What it is that we want is for the services that we are entitled to and expect to actually come. And we have demonstrated our engagement. So I think our next step, what we really want across this city, is a movement that's going to impact our communities and change it. A movement that is going to support the only thing that has been economically efficient for our community as far as promises, which is Section 9. I think it's time for us to start looking at resident management corporations. I think it's if we want the respect, we're not going to get it from NYCHA. We're only going to be able to get it when we take the responsibility, when we take it over. And so what I think that we need right now to start looking across the city, Queens and everywhere else, is to start looking at taking over management functions. Maybe we can't take over the whole management functions, but maybe we can start taking over some. I think we need to start dipping our toe into it. We need to start taking over this one, and then the third, and then the fifth, and then next thing you know, we're doing what NYCHA couldn't do, and saving Section 9 and redeveloping our communities and actually looking the way we're supposed to be looking. So now, Ms. Floretta Hudson standing up, so that means I went over my time, right? But listen, I just want to thank you all for indulging me. Again, another round of applause to the Federal Monitor team, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Thank you. It's right there. And we are so happy that all of you have stuck around and indulged us and listened to all the updates. And now it's time to hear from the residents directly. We had a sign-up sheet in the back, and a lot of you have signed up. So I have a list here from my trusty colleagues, Chase and Bailey and Heidi, who were so nice to sit in the gap for us to gather this list. So we're going to start with Shirley Mitchell. If she's right here, I'm going to come to you. And if you want to stand or sit, whatever makes you.
My question was about all the repairs that I see them doing. And if you're a longtime resident and you have major repairs that you want done, but you're also a senior citizen, and sometimes in the process of doing those repairs, it's toxic to you or it's stressful for you. But then you see when someone moves out of an apartment, they redo everything at once. They do the floors, they do new appliances. And I was wondering, if you're a longtime resident in good standing, why don't they offer you those fully repaired apartments? You move into those, and then they can gut your apartment and start from there instead of you having to live through the repairs. If you're a longtime resident in good standing, that seems like a good option for me.
Right. Monitor team.
Well, yeah, this is something we'll bring up with NYCHA. I mean, this is not something that we manage, but we'll ask the questions. Why aren't they doing that? I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
It does. Very reasonable. Right, next up, Patricia Cooper. Right here.
Well, my rat problem was as far as the chart showing that complaints about roaches have stopped. Okay. My rat problem was solved and answered by the monitors and by President Corinne. Now, as for the graphs showing the decline in pest control and all, did it ever occur to the people who make the graphs that people just stopped calling because their complaints weren't being heard? And for this ventilation system, if you don't have a fan in your bathroom, when do you get ventilation? And the elevators. They're putting in new elevators, taking like over 6 months. When it was only so that's the problem. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
That was Sheila.
yeah. You're
Flor-
saying that the elevators, it should have taken
4 months.
4 months, but now it's 6.5 months. And this is in Queensbridge. Yeah. Okay.
For the new elevators? Is that for the new elevators?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's for the new
yeah,
elevators.
they didn't estimate accurately how long it was going to take for each elevator. One of the reasons in their defense, one of the reasons is they thought it was more of a cookie cutter job. Everyone was going to, every elevator is the same. Well, they're not really. And the building they're in is not, everyone is not the same. So they had to design each one so it matched the building. And the design time is where they lost most of the time in putting in the elevators. It wasn't the actual installation. They lost it in the design time. But you're right, they did take longer.
Thank you.
Florida.
Rosalie Jones.
Florida, I think she had a question about pests as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say about pests now that we have a better microphone?
Saying that the graphs that were shown don't include the people who stopped calling because nothing was being done. And they figured exterminators weren't helping. So they just stopped.
So there were a number of variables as to why those numbers declined during COVID, right? So residents were not putting in complaints. Residents were not letting exterminators or NYCHA personnel into their apartments. And also NYCHA held back as well. So there's a compilation of issues, but the charts that I showed you, the bar graphs, those are actual numbers coming out of the maximum work order system. So those are actual complaints coming from residents.
Thank you.
Problem about my apartment. I'm in 1C on 41st side. My sink, every other day, the water's backed up in my sink. I can't, sometime I could go out, sometime I can't. What are we gonna do about the plumbing and stuff? Y'all talk about everything else. What about the plumbing? The pipes in these buildings are so old. They probably older than me. And it's not convenient for me to be dipping somebody else's water out my sink. You know, so something got to give. Not only that, the windows. We all live here, but it snows, it rains, it does everything. When can we get somebody to clean our windows so we could see what's going on? I mean, we live in, this is what we pay. I live in housing, and I don't think it's fair that we can't get clean windows. I can't get my sink fixed. I didn't put in tickets after tickets and the water's still coming up. They tell me it comes from the top. We got to find out what floor, who's washing at that time. But in the meantime, it doesn't matter first, second, fifth floor, sixth floor, whatever. It comes down to my sink on the first floor, and I'm tired of it. So what can we do about that?
Before we leave, we'll get the details of your apartment and the address
Right.
and follow up.
We will follow up. It's Rosalie Jones and she is here in Queensbridge. We will follow up with you directly this week and find out. So it's a plumbing issue and why can't we get the windows cleaned? Thank you. Doris McLaughlin. You can both speak. You are?
Hi, my name is Brenda Temple. Can I speak at the podium? Hello, everyone. I don't get an opportunity to get up and speak at the podium, so I'm glad to be here and do that. Hello, Federal Monitor Schwartz and your team. My name is Brenda Temple. I just want to, I'm from Oceanside Houses in Rockaway, Queens. And I want to mention that I heard from maintenance workers and janitorial workers that the management told them to do patchwork fixes on apartments. Do not go in depth, do not completely repair and do what they're supposed to do. And they were actually frustrated about this. Okay, we already know that NYCHA has neglected our developments for years and years. And there's a reason for that. It's an intentional neglect. I'm originally from Ravenswood Development, currently second vice president of Oceanside Apartments in Rockaway. By way of a Me Too person, as I went out into the corporate world, I landed back in public housing as a result of escaping trauma. I made some poor decisions, and I thank God for public housing that was there for me to pick me up and support me. And that's why I'm a community activist today. Someone is hurting us. How long, how many generations do we have to fight systemic racism? And you exacerbate it for obvious reasons, which is the privatization schemes. Maybe not you, but you know who I'm talking about. The higher ups, the private developers and corporations, NYCHA, are all in cahoots. We are the hardworking, low-income, essential, and have always been essential residents of public housing. And we say no to any form of privatization. We know that the bottom line and your agenda will result in mass evictions, displacement, and a breakdown of our communities as we know it. Ocean Bay, across the street from where I live, has gone rad. And we know that they have more evictions in all 5 boroughs than all of public housing in the past 5 years, and that's a fact. We also know that the mayor and governor would rather support privatization and put money towards it than public housing under Section 9. Hochul is more concerned about spending billions on a football field upstate. Our elected officials have failed us with their silence. We are pushing back. We are fighting back. We are organizing, and with over 400,000 plus residents of public housing and our allies, we will stop these atrocities. We need all hands on deck. We must come together to make the federal government give us our money because we know they have it. But do they have the willingness? We're hoping that in these days to come, because time is short, that people's minds will be changed and people will make the right decision for the betterment of the hardworking poor. Federal Monitor, we are here to collect our check. Do you have integrity and the will to stand up for what's right? To stand against the big boys, to stand with us? All that you're saying about these improvements is all well said and done. But the thing is, will we be here to reap the benefits if they come in and privatize our developments? My family, it is almost already too late. We must organize and fight for our homes, our families, our communities. Woe to the greedy. The conscience of this city, nation must be aroused. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and humanity must be proclaimed and denounced. Enough is enough. Let us march, let us rally, let us lobby. Let us make some good noise, some necessary noise, because when NYCHA says get back, we say fight back.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right. We appreciate her update and her comments. We appreciate them. Okay, Maddie Wallace, you're here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid of this, okay, to be displaced. And whatever she said, I go for it. Okay, for the simple fact that we've been here for how many years? And, oh, okay, sorry. Just for so many years. And to phase this out, where are we going? What are you gonna do with us? Some of us are seniors on, income, and but what are you gonna do? You're gonna take me out of my apartment, fix it up, and then I can't come back to it? I don't think so. What y'all gonna do?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Marilyn Diaz, there you are. I'm coming to you.
So my question is, I know I understand that we have the rat infestation going on. My thing is the rat poisoning that they put out throughout the Astoria houses on the grounds. How long and when are they supposed to be changed? And because that's like a snack for them.
Did you hear that, Tamika?
So I believe your question was
How often?
how often are
Do
they
they-
treating?
Yeah.
How often are they treating the grounds? So each development is different, right? So it really depends on the extent of the rat population or the pest population in your community. What development are you in?
Astoria.
You're in
houses.
Astoria. We can find out how many times a week that they are treating your development. We know currently that Queensbridge has a rat infestation here, and NYCHA is treating it 1 to 2 times a week. So we can get that information for you.
And we have your information, so we will email that to you. Okay, next, Deborah Nichols. Deborah Nichols. Oh, all right. Did I miss you? Going once. Daniel Taylor. Okay.
Thank you. I'm a low talker, so bear with me. Got the Barry White tone voice, going on here. I heard some good stuff, but for me, it's like I heard it before. This is like deja vu. The monitor sat up here, and I can remember, like in my mind, I've lived here quite a long time. I'm 67 and lived here most of my life. I remember when things really started going wrong, and it's when HUD was cut, funding was cut. It was always about some cuts that was going on, specifically during the Trump era. They cut a whole lot of funding, and since then, none of that funding, came back, and that's the real major problem with NYCHA not being able to afford to make these repairs. So they came up. I remember attending one of the they had a seminar in Maryland. It was about RAD. They was introducing RAD and to the public housing all over the nation, but even at that time, someone told me, that storage unit you got that you're renting, paying monthly to put your extra stuff in, well, that's going to be where you're going to live at the end of this RAD. And that's what that person said. And that was at least 7, 8 years ago. And it's coming to fruition in a lot of cases, because now I see they pushing it. So yeah, I have a whole lot of objections to that. There's no way that's going to be administered fairly. Nothing's considered you know, as far as people's incomes or what your situation is, it's not individualized. And that's the problem with a lot of this is, you know, these numbers is all just the whole citywide, but we're dealing with some stuff individually, you know, and trying to survive. And like that you said that the apartments look nice and all that, but a lot of us don't have the money to keep them up, and we shouldn't have to be spending our own money to do that, you know. One more thing. I noticed with the elevator, this is just my personal complaint about it, but then, you know, I don't know what masterminds come up with these ideas, but they put the elevators out in my building, but at the same time, they got a major project going on where they decide they want to paint everybody's apartment doors and the stairways and everything. So how does that work? You put my elevator, I live on the 6th floor, you put my elevator out, I can't take an elevator down, but I can't, you know, I'm like walking like this. By the time I got downstairs, I don't have blue paint everywhere on me. Because the people aren't really like, you know, who's doing that job with the paint. So that to me, like, just shows the gravity of the thoughts that go into when it, you know, when you do stuff, how you take the residents into consideration.
Where is that?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Florida, where is that? Which building?
Queensbridge.
I'm sorry, I'm from Queensbridge. I'm from this project. In the building that I'm talking about is 4005 12th Street. They painted it already, but they're going around. But the elevators being down wasn't considered. They just was doing their paint job. So some of the elevators are down, some aren't. But mine was down and they still painted my building.
What with you, Mr. Taylor? Vanessa Jones Hall.
Good evening, good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Jones Hall. I'm the PA president for Astoria Houses. When I arrived in, coming in from work, I heard Councilwoman Wong mention about Astoria Houses and the things that's going on in our community. And these things that they're saying about the crime and everything, true. Things have quieted down as of yet. Please keep us in prayer. But the thing you're not understanding is what's happening to us as residents. What things you're not hearing is how the residents really feel about what's going on in their community. Far too many times, even during the Sandy project, Astoria Houses has been neglected. We have not been given care that we supposed to have had. We are still reaping the situation from Sandy. We are still dealing with boilers, temporary boilers to heat our community from Sandy. Over the winter, we suffered greatly, severely, because we have boilers that were still heating the entire community from Sandy. We still have our infrastructure that is still damaged from Sandy. Our community is celebrating the 75th year, this Family Day. And we still are on the same legs that's been there since it's been born. We are surrounded by all this construction work up and around us. I'm also a member of the community board. I'm the vice chair of the housing committee, as well as a member of the environmental committee. And I always ask, how is it that this is being allowed, that all these developers are coming into our community? Up and around Astoria, we are completely surrounded, and they are allowed to come and tap into our infrastructure. They're allowed to tap into our water source, our electricity, and our sewage, where NYCHA is reaping the benefits that they're there, but it's not working for us when our infrastructure is crumbling. Our grounds are crumbling. When the ferry came, we thought that they would come and fix the fence. They only fixed the part where the ferry was. We had to fight for them to come and fix that because that was falling into the water. They had the nerve to put up a fishnet and just said, put a little cone there. And we was concerned about how the holes were gaping. So they finally paid that attention after years of complaining way before the ferry came. When it came down to these buildings coming in and they tapping into our water system, when Sandy hit and the buildings that's up against the water, they only fixed the pipes there. It was asked, how can you put brand new legs on top of the old body? It don't work. They treated us like we don't know what we're talking about, but what they don't understand is that we lived the situation. And that's the problem. They don't listen to us. They think that we're too dumb, or as my aunt say, too damn stupid to understand. And that's unfair, because when we tell them what's the problem we have, they feel that how dare, because we come from the projects, that we have no knowledge, that we come from the projects, that we are not smart. And that's not fair. So each time NYCHA brings these developers, these contractors in our communities, when we ask them, are they paying attention to what's being tapped into our sources? We get the ignored. We get canceled out, and it's not fair. We also ask, when you always have these contractors, why are they not being properly monitored? Because Astoria, it is always repetitious that we have a contractor come in and do work in our development, and they've botched the work. Then we have to get another contractor to reassess the situation and come back and do the work. And then they do shabby work when they're doing it as well. And over again, as I'm listening to all these meetings I attend, if NYCHA has no money, because there's so much being wasted just from that alone. And we're tired of it, and it's unfair. So when we look at these apartments that you see these people are in, they live in deplorable conditions. One thing I can say that we thought was gonna happen when Sandy hit, we saw that that disaster as a ray of hope, because that allowed NYCHA to pay attention to what was really wrong with the place they called as our landlord, where they called that they're responsible for, and that did not happen. What they did was hire the organization. Unfortunately, I got to work with them, which was fortunate for me, because I got to see what was really going on of how they were acting, was the fact that they allowed these people from another state that doesn't know our communities, come and tell us about our communities, but don't do what needs to be done. And you'll allow them to escape each time. No one's ever held accountable. You let the ones who's the CEO and them on the top, look how many times we had changes. They're never held accountable. Even if you find them doing something wrong, you allow them to leave. Prosecute them. Let them see what jail time is, because as far as we're concerned, that's how we live, because the way we are left our homes, it's not fair. Each and every time, Astoria has a lot of infrastructural problems continuously. And it's where we live on the water, and we are one of the very few developments of yours that lives directly on the water. So we get constant flooding. And it's unfortunate. I have a resident association center that's been down since Sandy. When I requested for an emergency meeting to ask for this center to be up and running, I had to give a letter saying why is the necessity. When you talk about the crime in my community, because we have resources there that has no place to be utilized on. It could complement Urban Upbound. It could complement the Hannock, but we also have the fact that we have children that need something to do, and we have the space. It's just that due to infrastructural problems, we cannot use it. So we're asking you, all this PAC and RAD and all of that means nothing if you're still not going to listen to the people that lives there. It means nothing. And it's time for you to really listen to us. We have too many meetings and still nothing's really been done. Yes, I may agree, and I can agree, and I must admit, there has been some changes and there have been some increase. But the fact remains is that the infrastructure is the problem. We're falling apart. All your developments here in New York is very old, and you keep building up upon it, and we're crushing in the middle. Please, enough is enough of these meetings. Let's finally do something. And for the people that live in our communities, we are equally responsible. We have to own up to what we do as well, because we are the ones who make sure that when we go to complain, we complain it to make sure that it's their fault and not ours. We are responsible for also the upkeep of our neighborhood. We are also making sure that our neighborhoods stay clean. We are also responsible to let it be known to each one of us that we got each other's back instead of going against each other. That's the only way we're going to do what this other person said and spoke about. It's time you want to uprise, we got to do it together. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jones Hall. We appreciate your comments, Christina.
Can I just say one thing before the question? One of the things we haven't talked about this evening, and I know it's getting late, but that we haven't talked about this evening is the organizational plan that I've been working, and the whole team has been working to change the way NYCHA manages itself. And the key to it is accountability at all levels. Some elements of actually, most of it has been made public. We're still working on revising it, but it'll be, the focus is to deliver accountability of vendors, everyone, because that is one of the big problems, which is the lack of accountability.
Hey, hi, good evening. My name is Christina Chase and I'm the second vice president of Ravenswood Houses. And I just want to thank everyone for being here, and just the leadership. It's such an honor and privilege to follow in your footsteps. I'm one of the newly elected, but to Ms. Vanessa's point, highly educated, right? We are educated because of public housing. I got to go to CUNY and got to even get my master's from public housing, so important. And that's why we're here to protect it, especially from any Section 18 applications when it comes to demolition and disposition. And so I'm glad you're here, Ms. Alika, because it's our it's our opportunity to make clear to you that we don't support rat impact, many of us, but more importantly, it's actually a slap in the face to us as public housing residents, because to focus on a Section 8 subsidy platform to replace our Section 9 platform, it's still federal monies. So it's not that we don't have money, it's about political will and how Section 9 is funded. And I still have hope for Section 9, and I'm hoping that we can come together and protect our homes because we understand the importance and what it's done for us. I've lived in Ravenswood Houses for 20 years, and before that, Astoria Houses, and before that, Queensbridge Houses in 96 or 97, I forgot when I was a kid. But I do understand the federal monitor's position, and I guess I want to speak to a few of those items. And so the first is elevators. Within Ravenswood Houses, we have a lot of elevators that constantly go out, and although the remedy is usually quick, it's still a huge inconvenience, and the only resolution that's been offered is to have staff people carry up a lot of our elders, and which many of them don't feel comfortable, which I understand. I don't want a stranger touching on my body. And so I think there has to be other strategies for us to support residents who are dealing with elevator outages. I know, at least in my building, a lot of those elevator outages is because people bring up their motorbikes instead of putting it on the fence. And that weight capacity is not supported. And so it ends up breaking down our elevator, but there's no reprieve. And it sounds like, considering how they are blockades to the entrance, but also nuisances when people bring it upstairs, I think it's important that for safety, we figure out a way for residents to put those motorbikes somewhere, because some of them may be using it for work as a delivery person. I don't want to say no bikes, we have to be realistic and meet people halfway. The second thing I wanted to bring up is heat. I know, at least I've experienced a lot of outages in my own unit throughout the winter year, but I think it's important for us, if we're going to think of any root cause analyses, that we look to wall installation and windows. A lot of our windows are old and need to be replaced. And a lot of our bedrooms, including my own, does not have insulation. And so any heat is actually a waste because it's escaping. Excuse me. I feel like this is my duty as an RA board, because, okay. Anyway, thank you. Regarding cabinets, I know this is a thing across all developments, the issue with a backlog with cabinets. And I know, to your point, ma'am, a lot of residents who have had their cabinets taken out to be replaced because of mold issues, it takes months, if not years, for them to actually, to replace them and to do the work of plaster and painting. We need to figure out a way to have those repairs be back to back to back. Otherwise, a lot of residents are left in limbo, because when those cabinets are taken out, it disrupts a lot of the pests. And it's a welcome for, I see some shit, because y'all know, a lot of roaches end up coming and rats. And to another person's point, I don't think residents should be in-house when those repairs are being done, particularly any repairs that lead to dust. I know right now NYCHA's policy is that those repairs will happen in-house unless the unit is uninhabitable. But those conditions are not okay. No, the unit next to me was going through an abatement, asbestos abatement, and all of the exhaust was going, like, there needs to be a better way to ensure that our health is protected while these renovations occur. And regarding painting, the quality of paint is not good. I just had my son's room painted in December and it's already peeling. I know all of y'all know that paint is garbage, is latex, it's already peeling. And if my development was built in 1951, I'm pretty sure it's got lead. So we need to figure out a better way to resolve that. And then regarding lead abatements, I read within the annual plan that as of April 2023, that NYCHA relocated 930 units. Residents within those units, completed 860 and successfully returned 840. So my question is, what happened to those other units? Is your office ensuring that those are being done in a timely manner? And are you ensuring that the residents are being relocated? Because it sounds like 20 families were not able to successfully come back home. And then regarding the roof fans, I read that 79 were completed and that initiative was to conclude in May. And so my question is, are you going to ensure that workers go back to reach that 21% of apartments that were not able to have their vent either cleaned and or replaced? And then last but not least, the pests. With regard to our rat bait, it's killing our squirrels and our cats. Our squirrels are squirrels are eating the rat bait. I'm sure Queensbridge especially knows this, and now it's happening to Ravenswood, as well as cats. And you can hear this from the maintenance workers themselves because they're the ones who have to remove their bodies. And the cats are eating, not necessarily the rat bait, but the rats that have eaten the bait. And so there's a lot of dead animals other than rodents that are being affected by this. I'm not sure about dogs, but I know that cats and squirrels are a huge issue. And I'm really concerned about the implications, particularly of the squirrels, no shades to cats, because we don't know what that looks like for the ecosystem since we have so much green space. But also just, I feel the maintenance workers having to deal with dead animals all the time, that shouldn't be. And then, yeah, I guess I'll stop there because I don't want to take up too much time, but I had, I'm here.
Thank you.
Could I suggest you really did cover a lot,
Yeah.
and some of it we had trouble hearing. Maybe we could call you tomorrow and go and go through it one by one. We'll be happy to do that.
We'll give her a call tomorrow and spend some time with her list so we can. Thank you. Thank you. We have two more questions and comments. Jojo, Leanne.
Try to tell the Korean, I need to address the problem of both of you. House. Okay, this is Jojo. I'm living in the Queensbridge. I brought this attention about the Asian people. And we are leaving this labor due to the language limitation. There's a lot of problem and a lot of stress that we cannot telling people. For my personal questions here, is there anyone who cares about the harassment by neighbor? Who are dealing with this? I called the police for 4 years. I report to the management office for a few years. Nobody's helping. The issue is during the pandemic, my upstairs labor moved in. And from that time, I don't pay attention that they making noise daily. I thought they built it like apartment inside to live in there. But after 6 months later, this noise is every single day at night and midnight, like a 24 hours there. And I feel something wrong. Only one day morning, when I scale up by the screen on the wall, the machine sounds, I'm scared of that. That's why I call police. Then I started reporting. And later on, I figure out this apartment, the people allow the unauthorized people who live in their apartment. I report to the management office. If they kick it out, the person supposed to not living there. We don't know where they came from. We don't know who they are. Maybe they will be better because those people blocking the apartment never step out, just making noise in their apartment. And the police told me that you have to go to the court because when the police came, they stop it. When the police left, they start over again. And in the midnight, when I call 311, I cannot sleeping, and my kids get disturbed in the peaceful life. They can't go to school like better because they cannot sleeping well. They cannot, because when I report to the manager office, that Spanish management lady like threatened me like that. That's not, they say, see, if you're recording what I'm saying, they're not talking to me. I say, if you say something is in the way, helping people solve the problem, why you scare people recording? If I go to the court, I don't show what you tell me, how I can solve this problem. I just request one thing, let them stop making noise. Let people go sleep. Let people get a peaceful life, living as an apartment, not living like in the like a factory, in the like a sport field. You every day build your inside apartment like this. When I talk to them, they say it's not them. They complain that another apartment. I observed by myself for a few years. I try to talk to neighbor. I try to talk to management office. I talk to police. I never get this problem solved. I just say, I know a lot of people just complain about the repairing or something, but however, is there anybody care about you want to live in peaceful place? Get like everybody like living as family, show respect. Don't do this. I know the language problem. A lot of Chinese people, they cannot speak English. They chewing this. I know. I want to speak out with somebody who will be follow up this investigate about people like a family allow the unauthorized people live in their apartment, do something, not respect. I just need to want the people know we are living in here. This is our home. It's not like we are against each other. I just want everybody to respect each other. I know this one thing is noise complaint. I said, I know police say they cannot do nothing. They cannot go into their apartment to stop them because they don't want them. When you call 311, how long you have to stay in the phone in the midnight when you're sleeping? And sometimes even I call, get a complaint number. I never see the people coming. If I want to go sleep, I just try to telling people, stop them. I know there's a law between a certain time. Can you please stop it? Nobody stop them. They still doing whatever they want. This has been 4 years already. This is 4 years already. It's enough, but I don't know where I could address this problem. For housing management office, I report to the Broadway. Nobody's pay attention. When they give me the email address and the investigation department, my emails blocked it. Nobody's accept this complaint. I don't know where. I just want somebody tell me if these things happen, harassment by the labor, where except the 911, 311, where people could help investigate about this to solve the problem. If those people who live in their apartment, they cannot stop making noise, can they move to the proper place, like a first floor or something, or forcing them to another apartment? Don't disturb in the downstairs, like underneath, whose family could get a peaceful life because of the noise or on the floor. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
No, they told me that. That's my apartment. I do whatever I want. You can do nothing. As police told me the same thing. They cannot do nothing. When the police stop by locking the door, they stop it. When the police left in a few minutes, they start over again. But and one more thing is why the housing allowed unauthorized people live in the apartment supposed not there. Who will be find out this problem? Why they allow the people supposed not in the apartment? I don't know who they are. I don't know where they came from. And you don't have to wait to talk to them. They don't open the door. You try to nice to them. I told them that we are labor, we are family. We are living in the same place. Please show a little bit of respect. Just let people get a peaceful life as normal family. It's not like, I'm not trying to against anybody, but I just
Florida.
need somebody to help could help address this problem, find out the problem, or you could like suggest a move to the proper place if you have the kids or somebody.
Okay, Florida, can
And
we?
well, Nisha, Carol is also gonna take her information and find out, first of all, you know, the real issue, all of her details. And because she's mentioning a few things, the harassment piece, the tenants that she's complaining about, they're not legally that should be there or they're there illegally. She's getting the runaround, and also the instructions that she's receiving is she has to take the matter into her own hands. No one is saying she has to do her own investigation. So please talk to her, but we're monitor team, did you wanna, Tamika?
Yes, can we also connect her with the PSA 9 as well?
Say that again, Tamika.
Can we also connect her with PSA 9?
Yeah.
We'll connect her with the NCO officers for this area.
Carol, yep. This is we hear her loud and clear. And we're gonna get her some assistance because the biggest thing that she said is like, she's been trying to deal with this for 4 years and no remedy 4 years later. So something has to be done. Sylvester Brathwaite, we have 2 more speakers. I really appreciate everyone's patience, but these issues are very important that we need to address. Did Mr. Brathwaite leave? All right, how about Renee? Renee Key.
So my name is Renee Kitt, and I'm actually a resident of the Elliott Chelsea houses. There's been a survey. They say we're going to be demolished. Your problem with that is there's a lack of transparency in this whole process. We do not know what the vote totals are. Allegedly, it's anywhere from 900 to 1,000 people. There are 4,500 people who live in Elliott, Chelsea, Chelsea Addition, and Fulton. That is impossible to demolish something when that is not even half of the residents. Last but not least, we are not the worst of the developments, and there's a total lack of transparency in this whole process. We do not know the vote totals, so this is a big issue. It is not a Queens issue. It is an issue from all of NYCHA and all of public housing for everyone. So what I am asking for is your help in getting the totals per development, Elliott, Chelsea, Chelsea Addition, and Fulton, to know how many people voted and what is the percentage of the vote. Elliott, Chelsea, and Fulton are 2 different developments. They should not be combined together or consolidated. That's what I'm asking your help with.
Thank you, thank you.
We will talk to the CEO's office and find out what the story is. We're not involved in that at all. But we'll still ask the question, or at least communicate the question.
Great, thank you. We just wanted to mention that we have 2 upcoming community meetings. The next is September 12th, Bronx Community Meeting, and then November 14th, Staten Island Community Meeting. We always say that please don't wait for these meetings to contact the NYCHA Federal Monitor's office. On your screen, you'll see you can contact us through our website, nychamonitor.com, or email us at monitor@nychamonitor.com. You can call us 347-809-5555 or toll free at 844-309-6080. I just want to give a special thank you to Robert Madison, who is the Associate Executive Director of this building of Jacob Resettlement, for opening his doors to us. He was so gracious to let us have our meetings here. And also to our vendors, we have Minden Hall Catering and Canal Sound, and all in one with our tables and chairs. All of them are local vendors from the Queens area that we were able to engage. So we wanted to say thank you to them as well. And thank you to all of you who have attended. We are going to be in touch with you to follow up on all of your questions and comments. And I will leave the last words of closing remarks to Bart. Over to you to close us out.
Well, you know, this is always valuable to us, as I said before, to hear, even if there are issues that we can't directly impact, it helps us understand what the problems are, what the issues are. And we do have access to the leadership at NYCHA, and we use that access to help educate them what you're concerned about. So the individual issues that we've heard today, we'll follow up on all of those. And the ones that are broader will certainly follow up. And so I think there's a great value to these meetings, and we'll certainly continue to have them. And I'm glad you gave the future dates, Florida. Thank you. I wish all of you a good night. Thank you.